If all you're doing is constantly reading slop books, it's not real literature and you're not really reading. Just kidding. Really got you going there for a second, didn't I? But this is a real sentiment I've seen all over social media in conversations about the literacy crisis. And I kind of want to dive into both sides of this argument as a sort of meta analysis. So, first of all, what is happening in this discourse? Social media is flooded with tons of posts about the literacy crisis. People will share what they like to read, and another group will storm in uninvited saying, "That's not real literature." And the response is always, "Let people read what they want. There's a literacy crisis, for Christ's sake." But I think both sides have some common ground that they're not seeing, some points that aren't being said. So I'd like to dive into this and maybe we can kind of put an end to this whole conversation and understand each other better. For clarity going forward, I'm going to call the "Let People Read What They Want" Group A, and the "That's Not Real Literature" Group B. So before we get into speculation, let's talk about what we actually know. Reading for pleasure is down, sustained long form reading is down, and the average adult in the United States reads at a 6th to 8th grade level, with a good chunk reading below that. These aren't opinions, they're measurable facts, and yes, I know they are scary. Now, to this, Group A says let people read what they want, and I say to that, yes, you are correct. If you disagree with this, you have to understand that it's not your life. You need to let people enjoy their lives, read what they want. It doesn't matter if the books that they're reading don't have the vocabulary or the dense, complex plots of speculative or literary fiction. It doesn't matter. They enjoy it. And shame on you for shaming that. However, if you're in Group A, you have something to confront too. I see a lot of people in the Group A in this discourse say that reading is reading and it's all the same. And I'm all for inclusiveness, but we can't sit here and pretend that the cognitive load of a comfort read versus a dense literary book is the same. It's not. Not educationally, not neurologically, not developmentally. And that's okay. Again, we're not talking about which is better or worse. We're just talking about cognitive load, not moral superiority. There's no crown that comes with finishing a denser or harder book. Now, does Group B need to interject into conversations that aren't even about which books are more literary or challenging and telling people what to read? No. But the cognitive load is not the same. I can make another video going into the studies that talk about this, but what I really want to get into is where I think Group B is coming from. Ideally, we can get both sides to understand each other better so we can find some common ground and stop bickering over the internet. So why do I think that Group B is reacting this way? Well, publishing has been drifting toward more easily digestible, easily readable, and emotionally shallow books for years now. Why, you may be asking? One, because people buy them. And two, we know there's a literacy crisis, so a majority of people feel comfortable at a lower reading level. This is the connection I don't think anybody wants to say out loud, and I haven't really seen anybody talk about. Of course, there aren't any studies that prove this, but publishers and agents have made comments or statements saying that they are much less likely to publish an author, especially if they're debuting, if they don't cater to current mass market trends. I want to be clear, I'm not saying that there are not deep or profound books being published anymore. I'm speaking on a term of general trends. So when Group B says that's not real literature, I feel as though they're coming from a place where they're feeling the loss and the change in the literary scene. And that change is the reflection and loss of depth in books in recent years. With publishers publicly saying this, that they are only catering to the easy mass market trends for books, imagine how many stories and voices we've lost because of this. How many ideas or perspectives didn't get published and didn't see the light of day that could have changed generations, could have moved the masses, because a publisher didn't see it fitting into mass market trends and didn't think that it would sell. And this is a part that Group A often forgets. The literacy crisis isn't only about the number of people reading for pleasure being down. It's also about reading levels being down, with people having the inability to engage with dense, complex, long-form literature, unable to dissect difficult prose and layered arguments. And so while reading that trending, light, fun read is valid and enjoyable, it doesn't tackle the reading comprehension side of the literacy crisis. Again, I feel the need to say that I'm not a Group B spokesperson. I can't speak on every book that they've commented on or situation they've called people out for this. They're not the arbiters of what is a dense read either. However, I do feel that this is the core belief and fear behind their reaction. However, I think Group B needs to realize that No one specifically is to blame for this. The landscape of the literary scene has changed. Books used to demand your attention, but it now competes with your computer and a device in your pocket that makes you reset your attention every few seconds. The average person changes media and stream of consciousness constantly. Technology has trained our brains to extract and move on quickly. So, with this, consumer desire changed and publishing just followed. Of course, books today are going to be more shallow or easier to digest because they need to stay competitive and compete with our phones or these other easy digestible forms of media. That's what the general consumer wants, and that's what's going to sell. That's what they're going to print. So, to close, don't shit on people for sharing what they love to read. But as a whole, I think we need to not lie to ourselves. The literary landscape has changed, and we might never get it back.